Some days were really hard. I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to get out of bed and wonder if my kid was dead somewhere in a ditch because they'd taken off the night before and I didn't know where they went. I couldn't control whether they stayed at home or not. And my kid didn't go out her window. She just went out the front door. And even if police brought them back out the front door again. There was nothing I could do to control that. All I could do was control how I interacted with her, how I connected with her when she would come back into the house. Because you can't control your kids. You can influence what they do, but you can't control what they do. So trying to figure out what I wanted to be as a parent, that's the part that they taught me. How to be the parent that they needed me to be.
Hello and welcome back to another amazing episode of the Grace and Love podcast. I'm your host, Grace, and today I am joined by a very special guest who I like to call Mama Shauna. This is Shauna Davis. She is one of many figures at the Leaf Company and my second mom. So, Shauna, how are you feeling today?
I'm a little nervous, quite honestly.
Yeah?
Yep. But I'm excited.
Good. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast because you are somebody that has inspired me. You see me fully for the struggles, the mental struggles of my trauma. You seek me out and ask how I am doing. Mm-hmm. You answer them straightforwardly, and you give me, every single time you give me the answer, I feel like, which is just the advice that you just give me. Mm-hmm. So I have titled this episode, The Mother with the Cape, a true story of resilience, because superheroes come in all shapes and sizes, and some wear capes, and some wear scrubs, and some wear uniforms, and some have badges, and some are moms. Most of them are moms, I feel like. Full-time job.
I agree.
You have 2 full-time jobs. And you are a mother of, is it 4 adopted children?
Correct.
Okay. Wow. So you work in this industry. You've worked in this industry for a long time, right? And I hear that we are saying goodbye to you to go pursue working closer with families. Mm-hmm. I am so thrilled for your new adventure, your next chapter. I know that I'm not losing touch of you because that is how important you are of me. I know that you are just a phone call away.
That's true.
I love you so much. Oh my God, I'm going to cry now. But the reason that I feel like this episode is so important is because I think we're going to just dig into what it is like to be a mother of 4 adopted children with diverse disabilities. Mm-hmm. Because that is so common in our world, in adoption. There is, the natural mind ones that are, dyslexia, challenges in school, to behavioral issues due to ADHD, high energy, low functioning on the spectrum. Mm-hmm. And you have a little bit of all of it in your house. Mm-hmm. And you balance a full-time job, 4 kids that are, have disabilities, which adds to that plate. Mm-hmm. And you show up every day. You check. I love checking in with you to see how you're doing because you have your life story, which is immensely challenging, mm-hmm. and you have your work story, which is another level of everyone else's challenge, right? And you balance it so gracefully, might I add. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about your family dynamic? And I'm looking for, ages, names, what their disabilities are, and kind of how that sits in the American family.
Well, I have 4 adopted kids. My 2 oldest are a sibling set. Mm-hmm. They came to us when they were 19 months and 5 months old. Mm-hmm. They're brothers. Jonah is the oldest. He was diagnosed with autism when he was 8. He was also diagnosed with ADHD when he was 5. we knew from a young age that there was things going on in his brain that um, were a challenge for him, and they were a challenge for us. So when he was 5, we got him diagnosed, and they, like I said, they diagnosed him with ADHD, but we didn't feel that that was really what all was happening. He had his own trauma before we got him. And I wish I knew then what I know now. I could have done things differently, but I knew what I knew.
Mhm.
And he's had challenges all throughout, but now he's like 20, almost 28, no, 20, yeah, almost 28. And he's doing pretty good for himself. He has a job. He pays his car payment. He pays his phone most of the time. And he pays his rent. All things that I wasn't sure that he'd be able to do when he was much younger.
Sure. Yeah.
His brother is a year, like, much younger is he? Like just over a year younger, 14 months younger. Brandon. And then we have right now Brandon is almost 27. And then we have a daughter we got her when she was 10 months. Jaden, she was born addicted to heroin. So it really messed with her executive functioning part of her brain. She's very impulsive. She doesn't think things through, which has been a challenge for her throughout her life. She is 23, and then I have my youngest son. He came to us from another family, and he is currently 21, and we got him when I used to do therapeutic respite for families, and he was one of the kids that came to us for therapeutic respite. Funniest kid ever.
Mm.
He used to crack us up all the time. But he's super smart. He just sometimes he struggles with pure stuff. He doesn't always read things well. And he's doing great right now too. So they all see each other as different, and I can't really have family gatherings with them all because they all don't get along with each other. And there's been stuff that's happened over the years that has caused friction between the siblings. My second son struggles with if there's too many people around, sometimes a little bit of social anxiety. And he gets, sometimes he can get upset about things quickly, and he forgets to breathe and that kind of stuff to calm himself down. But he's figuring stuff out, and he's learning. And what other question did you have for me? I forgot. Sorry.
It's all right. So just the daily dynamics. So you kind of touched on that with, you don't really have family events because they all have different views. And over the years, stuff has happened to kind of cause that friction. How does that make you feel as a mother now? Kind of seeing this from your story, from what I know, you had kind of this perfect picture, this perfect family picture, right? What was it like having that dream fall apart? Is there grief there?
Oh, definitely there's grief. Yeah. I anticipated that things would be like it was when I grew up. Like all my friends came over, we would have sleepovers. They'd come over for dinner, and the family would enjoy, each other's friends. But that wasn't the case at my house because there was so much, like my middle son, Brandon, he didn't get that because there was so much fighting. He was the middle child for a long time. Nathan didn't come along till much later. And there was so much hostility with the other two that he kind of got the short end of the stick a lot of times, where he didn't get as much attention as he needed. And because he didn't show that he needed attention, because he was hypo-aroused, he would withdraw. He just would try and make things okay for everybody else. We didn't see it. So he ended up being really resentful as he got older. There was things like, you know, if you go on Facebook or Instagram, right, you see things from families. Oh, my kid's doing this. My kid graduated high school. My kid got their driver's license. My kid was on the honor roll. Or my kid, we had a big family reunion and all my kids were there. I have had 3 of my kids have graduated high school. 1 hasn't. And that's okay. That one kid will do things the way that kid wants to do things. And eventually that kid will get their high school diploma or whatever they want to do. But things like having pictures on the walls, having a family picture, you know, people post that on all the time. I don't have that. You know, and it seems like something that's really small and insignificant, but it's really not. So I have to do things. One of my families I worked with had pictures, a bunch of pictures on their wall. And I'm like, oh, I can do it that way and it will be fine. Mm-hmm. You know, I can put up a bunch of pictures of my family and cover the wall with pictures, and I will have pictures on my wall. Mm-hmm. Doing something like that. And then having everybody over for dinner. My mom used to have dinner every Saturday night. We'd have family dinner. And when we were older, when we moved away because of where we lived, we couldn't attend. But having a family dinner where we're all together, because most of us live in the same surroundings. My oldest son lives back in Canada where I'm from, but everybody else lives pretty close together. Mm-hmm. Having everyone come over for dinner or something like that also seems like a small thing. Mm-hmm. But when they don't get along, it's a big thing. Mm-hmm. And so I've had moments where they got along, but not all the time. And this amount of stress that was in my life when they were growing up, like it was really stressful. It was really stressful. And a lot of times I didn't even know if we're going to make it past 16 or past 12, or like 18 seems so far away. Not that 18 is the magic number, but when you're struggling with kids, it is the magic number, because 18 is where they can be on their own. Mm-hmm. And they can do their own thing. Mm-hmm. And if your kid is 12 and they're breaking stuff and they're threatening you on a regular basis, or they're threatening their siblings, or they're threatening themselves, and you just don't know how you can get through that day to get on to the next day. Mm-hmm. Like I used to stay up at night to prevent the next day from coming. Now, how ridiculous is that? Because the next day always comes regardless. So then I'd just be extra tired. And then I'd have to get kids up for school. And, you know, a couple of my kids were good about going to school, but one was not. She did not want to go to school. She did not want to get up. And it would take me 2 hours to get her to school. And then I was getting the SAR letters from the school saying your kid is missing too many days. Why don't you come to my house and come get the kid up and take her to school? Mm-hmm. Because I obviously can't do it. once I got her there, it was fine. But to get her there was really hard.
That was
So it
really-
was simple things that other parents didn't seem to have the problem with that I was having problems with. And I know that that's not true. Other parents have the same problems that I was having. But they just seem to be mounted on each other extensively. And sometimes I felt like I couldn't breathe. Like it was all encompassing and so stressful. And at the same time, they made me who I am. They made me who I am. And for that, I'm grateful, because I wouldn't be where I am right now. I wouldn't be working with other families and be able to be a support to other families if I hadn't gone through all that stuff. And some days were really hard. I didn't want to get up I didn't want to get out of bed and try and get my kid to school, or try to get my, wonder if my kid was dead somewhere in a ditch because they'd taken off the night before and I didn't know where they went. I couldn't control whether they stayed at home or not, or whether my kid didn't go out her window. She just went out the front door. And even if police brought them back out the front door again. So, I mean, at least she was honest about that. I'm not going to stay home. There was nothing I could do to control that. And all I could do was control how I was when she came home, how I interacted with her, how I connected with her when she would come back into the house, how I connected with my son when he comes home from a visit. How do I connect with him? And that was all that I can only control myself. And a friend of mine told me, she told me a few years ago, she said, you have to do what you're going to be comfortable with doing. If you were to look 5 years from now, if you were to look back, are you going to be good with what you did as a parent? That's what you got to do. And so me trying to control everything that they were doing, that wasn't going to work, because you can't control your kids. You can influence what they do, but you can't control what they do, especially when they're teenagers. You can't make them stay at your house, even if you try and sit on them, they're not going to stay. They're going to push you off and they're going to leave if they want to leave. You can't control it. You can influence it. So trying to figure out what I wanted to be as a parent, that's the part that they taught me. How to be the parent that they needed me to be. When I first looked at adoption, I don't know if they do this here, but in Canada, you go to an information, you go to the social services, you go to information night, and you fill out a paperwork. And I don't know if they still do this, but they did when I was adopting. And it lists off all the things that you don't want to deal with, like check off the things that you don't want to deal with. So like sexual abuse, or sexually acting out, or poop smearing, or harm to animals, or setting fires, or
behaviors you want to avoid. Okay.
Behaviors you want to avoid. So I checked off all those things. I don't want to deal with all those things. But through being a parent and working with other adoptive families, I've dealt with all those things. And guess what? I'm still here. I didn't die. I'm still here working with families and working with my own family. And those things they don't matter, those things. Those things may come up for adoptive parents. And they're still going to be okay. But some of them don't know that. When you're in the thick of it, you don't know how you're going to survive, because you feel like you're just trying to survive every day, or every moment, trying to get from one moment to the next. It feels like you're just trying to survive. It doesn't feel like thriving. It feels like surviving.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that it feels that way for the kid too. And I think for my kids, it felt that way because I was not a mom. I was trying to parent the way my parents parented me, and I couldn't do that with my trauma kids. It didn't work the same way. So I had to work really hard. I had mentors that helped me to be different than who I was. And I'm grateful to them for that because they helped me to be the parents my kids needed me to be, that I was willing to listen to what they had to say, to work with the disabilities my kids had. And I don't know that they all have challenges. I don't know that they would consider those things to be disabilities. They're all challenges for each one of them. And some of the consequences for each one of them, some of the consequences have been severe for all of them in some way, shape, or form. And they're still doing pretty good for the challenges that they have. I think only one of my kids is really struggling more so than the other ones right now. And that part, her disability, it makes me sad that she struggles so much with that. But that hers goes back to in utero trauma that I had a really hard time understanding about. I always was like, I don't get it. She didn't have any abuse. She went from the hospital to her foster parents, they were great. I could never understand how she could have so many challenges, how her brain was so impacted. But in utero trauma is a real thing. And it is very impactful on the brain and how the brain, functions. The executive functioning part of the brain is like the air traffic control part of the brain. Helps with everything. And her birth mom's drug use and her birth mom's lifestyle really impacted that for her. And she has struggled her whole life. And hopefully that changes for her. But I think my role as a parent definitely has shifted. I'm much more different. I don't even know if that's correct grammar. I'm a lot different. A lot more different than I was when I parented my own kids, how I help raise my grandkids. So I've learned a lot of things about myself and about trauma and about adoption and what I want my children to learn and benefit from than what I knew before.
Yeah.
So,
wow, I'm inspired. I feel that there is so much more emotion in the noise of the feeling, right? We talk about a lot in some of our intensives that we offer. It's like a deep dive into the feeling, the sound, the emotion behind your trauma stories. That there is so much sound to your grief and your pain as a mother and as a parent. And your story has always been so inspiring to me. I feel like one of these days I would love to meet your daughter because we share a lot of the utero trauma. Came out talks positive as well. You said something that struck me. You said that your daughter, her bio mom, had a lot of life choices, behaviors that affect her today. And I noticed that in myself as well. My mom was in and out of prison, jail, running from the law, involved in drug busts, things like that. And I have like a sixth sense. I know if I look miles down the road, I know that's a cop car. I don't need to see the lights on top. Oh yeah, that Ford, that's a cop. Oh, that, I know if there's a cop behind me in line. I'm not that my head is on a swivel. It is for a different part of that. But I just know when they are. I'm not doing anything wrong in my life. I don't have a record. I've not, I have nothing to be afraid of.
Right.
But they are there, and I go.
You can feel it heighten. Yeah.
It's there. So I was talking to my dad, who's a psychiatrist, and he goes, oh, yeah, of course you do. Because your mom was running from the law all the time, drug busts. She was aggressive with cops, altercations and things like that. Of course you're freaking out. You were in her stomach while she was doing that. And I said, oh, Dad, please tell me I was not behind bars. And he's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, we've been behind bars. I'm like, oh, that's great for me. And so we teach in our methodology that 9 months or 3 months, the fetus can hear the mother.
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
After conception.
4 weeks after conception, the fetus can hear. So that goes on the deeper level of just hearing a mother's voice. It goes into the brain. Like, okay, if the mom is stressed, the baby's stressed. If the mom is running from these cops and is altercations and fears and is using the word cop, the baby is stressed. So that can shape a child.
Yeah.
And it turns out your adult daughter as well. Yes. Through her entire life, this is always going to be a thing that you and your daughter and I share, as many children will share. A lot of these children are taken away from their mother because their mother is seen as unfit to take care of them due to the life choices that they are making. So I feel like that is a unique and common story altogether.
It's a lot more prevalent, especially with where drugs are going.
Yeah.
We have a lot more kids that come through that have been drug exposed. And it really does impact their ability to regulate, and impacts their ability to have social, emotional relationships. It impacts their ability to function in every way within their families. When I first started learning about adoption, and not about adoption, but about trauma and how it impacts your relationship. I was told the story of when you're working with your adopted child, it's like coming upon a wounded animal. And the wounded animal, you just want to help the wounded animal, but they're scared. So they'll lash out at you more when you're trying to help them. And that's how it is with some of my adopted kids. We have kind of like a push-pull sort of relationship where they want me, but they don't want me at the same time. So when my daughter's in a good place, she really wants a relationship with me, and she'll work on that with me. When she's not in a good spot, then she'll do things to push me away because she's scared. And she's just trying to survive in her world. And so she can get mean, and the mean stuff is what's hard for moms, because as moms, we're supposed to be the nurturing ones, the ones who their kids come to for the nurture stuff. And we're not supposed to be told that our kids hate us, or, well, that's what we're not supposed to be told. And I'm sure that happens in normie families too, especially with teenagers. And the key is to not take that stuff personal when it happens. And I think where things changed for me is being able to, I remember standing in the hall and my kid was yelling at me about something. And there were, I don't even remember which kid it was. But I just remember standing there going, I don't really know what to do right now. I mean, and it was okay that I didn't know what to do because that kid just needed to express themselves how they felt about whatever. And it really had nothing to do with me, the things that they were saying. They were pushing all their discomfort out on me. But once I reached that point of, okay, this doesn't have anything to do with me, and I don't need to take this personal, and it's okay if I don't know what to do right now. All they're doing is yelling and screaming, and that's no big deal. Then I was better able to handle things. And then I just learned from there because also, again, I had mentors who were teaching me and were helping me to be able to learn that stuff, the things that they say when they're dysregulated have nothing to do with me. And it just comes from their own discomfort and their own frustrations. I mean, we do it all the time. We may do it to our spouses or our significant others. I come home from work sometimes and I may be frustrated, or I may have not eaten at the right time, or I might be really tired and I'll lash out at my husband and he'll be like, okay, thanks a lot. And I'll be like, oh man, okay, fine. That's just like my stuff that's coming out. And then I'll go back to him and apologize. And just say, like, I'm sorry, I'm just really grumpy today. It doesn't have anything to, now I know to front load him. It doesn't have anything to do with you. This is what's happening and I might get upset. And it doesn't have anything to do with you. So being able to do that with my kids, front load my kids. My daughter wrote me a really nice letter recently, and it was just all thanking me for staying in her life and not giving up on her. You know, that kind of stuff. She also gave me a mug a few years ago that said something about you're the mom I needed to have, or you're the mom that I'm grateful that you're my mom, or something like that. I can't remember what it says. But that's her way of saying thank you for staying here, for not giving up on me, and not, because she'd given me lots of reasons to just say, okay, I'm out. You know, and sometimes parents go to that place of, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't see why I have to do this anymore. I'm done. I've said those things before, but just in the moment, right? And I don't mean those things. This is sometimes you feel as a parent when you are working with kids with challenges, kids from tough places, you feel hopeless sometimes. You feel like what you're doing is not going to make any difference. You feel desperate, and you feel like you're on an island by yourself and no one understands you. No one understands what it's like to be an adopted parent. You're not like, some people will say, oh, it's just a phase for them. I don't want to hear that stuff when I'm going through it. I don't want people to tell me that's just a phase. I want people to hear me about my struggle. I want people to understand what I'm saying. I don't want people to try and fix it for me. I just want you to hear what I'm saying and understand that it's hard. And sometimes I don't want to do it. And sometimes I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't know what to do to reach my kid. And sometimes it doesn't look pretty. And it's okay to not be okay with what's going on. And some people are uncomfortable with that they just want you, they want to fix it for you. And that doesn't help me when I'm feeling hopeless and alone on an island by myself. That's why for adoptive families, it's really important to have community. So if you don't have like another thing that got me through is I went to an adoptive group, Heart to Heart up in Roseville. I mean, that's what got me through. Some days I would go there and I would be bawling bawling all the way through, not caring that I was like crying because I had to go back home to kids that were destroying my house, or my front door has been replaced twice. My I couldn't put any pictures on my walls because my kid would knock them off and break the glass. What's the point of putting pictures up? I still have no pictures on my walls. I could put them up now. Just haven't yet. So many holes were punched in the walls of my house. Okay. They've been fixed now. Took a while. And I don't remember where I was going with that. It's just hard. It's hard to be an adopted mom. And at the same time, it's really rewarding. So if people are going to adopt, they need to go into it with eyes wide open, not just because you want to rescue some kid, but you need to really pay attention to your own stuff, because kids will find your buttons, and they'll know what your triggers are really, really fast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know I had triggers till my kids came along. Yeah. So
yeah, that leads me into kind of the closing statement of, you talk about how hard it is. You really give the adopted mom a voice, the adopted dad, the voice. It's hard. It's not easy. You're doing it for love. You're doing it for all the right reasons. And I don't think you disillusion the idea that, before you get into it, is that, no, you're going to be brought to your knees of how hard this is going to be. What can we say? What is something you would say to somebody that there's no other option and they really want to adopt, or, medically or out of the goodness of their heart? What is the encouragement, other than your testament to who you are today, that 3 out of 4 of your children are succeeding at the level that you have accepted, that success, still seen as success, and that your daughter is still working on her stuff, but you have this beautiful relationship with her on and off. You're meeting her where she is at, the love that she needs. What is your testament? What would you tell an adopted mom right now as the encouragement?
I'd say one thing I'd say is you need to really make sure that that's something you want to do. Go into it with your eyes wide open. Talk to other adopted parents. And if it's something you still want to do, that's great, because who you are now is not who you're going to be 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 20 years from now. And I know that can happen with parents that don't adopt as well. I know that can happen with birth parents, but it really is intensified because when you parent a kid from tough places, they have so much fear that pops up at random times that you're not expecting. It could be that you walk into a store and your kid starts freaking out when you walk into that store, because it brings up a memory for them that they don't necessarily remember, but it may be a smell, or it may be something they saw. It may be someone they saw that reminded them of someone else, and they start having big fits, and then you have to leave the store, and you just think it's about behavior, but really their brain got triggered by something that they saw, or they smelled, or they heard. And you may not necessarily know what it is. Being able to know that those kids come with struggles and fears and challenges, and it's not that it's not impossible. It is possible. And it is very rewarding. And it's going to require a lot of hard work on your part. I remember telling my son, this was the most ridiculous thing I said to him, but I said, my oldest son, I said, I'm doing 99.9% of the work, and you're doing 0.1% of the work. And I don't think that's right. You're like 15. You should be able to do more work than that.
Mm-hmm.
And he could have cared less with the statement, but that was just me trying to make a point that was honestly a dumb point because, yes, I have to do 99.9% of the work. And sometimes I have to do 100% of the work. Even if they're teenagers, I have to do 100% of the work. Not all the time, but when they are really stressed out, I'm going to be putting in more of the work than they are. And sometimes we forget that part because what happens is they go way back. Their emotional age goes way back to like a toddler or younger. And what would you do with a toddler? You'd help them along. You wouldn't give them things that they couldn't do at that time. And so I would tell adoptive parents, find resources for yourself. Find a support group for sure. Mm-hmm. You need to be with other adoptive parents who understand what you're going through because normie parents don't get it, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes your family's not going to get it. Mm-hmm. And you're going to lose family members because it's better for them not to be with those family members who don't understand what it's like. Sometimes you're going to lose friends that you never thought you were going to lose. Mm-hmm. And then they don't understand it. So they say things to you that are mean that they think they're trying to be supportive and they're not. We have lots of adoptive families that have either lost family members or they've lost friends because they didn't understand it or they didn't want their kids to be there with them because of some of their behaviors. And at the same time, again, you're going to grow way more than you ever thought you could. I used to be a super shy person. I wouldn't talk to nobody because I was always afraid of failing. I was always afraid of getting it wrong. What if I get it wrong? I might die if I get it wrong. What if I get it wrong? Then people are going to hate me. And then where will I be? I'll be on an island by myself. So then I didn't talk to anybody. And my kids have provided me opportunities to talk to other people, provided me opportunities to get help when I needed help. I had people coming into my house all the time helping me with, or they'd take a kid. I used to go to this, what is it called? I went to a day program for adopted kids. And the requirement was that I had to volunteer 2 days a week. Well, I went 4 days a week because I wanted to suck up as much knowledge as I could to become a better parent, to really learn how to be what my kids needed me to be. And that made a difference for me. So if you're going to be an adoptive parent, read up on some materials. I got a bunch of books I can give you that will help you out. Find a support group. Look in your community. What are the resources in that community that can assist me? And sometimes when you adopt, you're going to have a kid that doesn't have. You may have a kid that is doesn't have as much behavior stuff as some other ones. Mm-hmm. Great. And if you have a kid that requires services, you need to know what they are. So if you're going to a support group, the people in that support group are going to know what they are. Mm-hmm. And they're going to send you in the direction you need to go to find them. Learn about IEPs.
Learn about RAP.
Learn about RAP. Yes, RAP. Definitely wraparound services. It's going to help you out. It's going to provide some education. It's going to provide some coaching. That's what LEAF does for families. And it's going to provide support, especially when you feel like you don't have any.
Right.
And they might tell you things you don't want to hear. Mm-hmm. Listen and do something different. Mm-hmm. If you keep doing the same thing, that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different result. It's like you're digging a hole and your child's digging another hole. There's no connection there. You're just digging two holes.
Yeah.
get out of the hole and do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Challenge yourself. And you can find joy in adoption and being an adopted mom. I'm so grateful that I'm an adopted mom, that I have adopted kids, that they have all these challenges, and that I can be their mom.
Yeah.
And they're all alive. They're all doing things that I didn't expect them to do. I didn't expect them to be where they're at. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that for the things that they're learning in their lives. And they have their whole lives ahead of them, and where they go from here, it's up to them. And I can still influence. I can't control. I can influence what they do. I can just control how I respond to what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. You are truly the mother with the cape. And I think this was very helpful for some of our struggling moms out there and our dads too, for sure. Definitely. I feel like a lot of people don't know that there is, after adoption, after you sign that dotted line, there is still support out there. You feel like all the support, all the social workers go away. No, they're there. You have to dig a little. And you think that, if you adopt from a child, adopt a child or a baby, you feel like, oh, I dodged a bullet. They have no back and forth trauma. They have no this, that, the other. Not true. There's utero trauma. Two testimonies today talking about that. Mm-hmm. And so there is help out there. Go find it. Thank you, Shauna, for joining me on this journey today, giving our mothers inspiration and advice. I feel honored to have you be in my life. And this was so special.
You're so sweet, Grace.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
Thank you guys for listening with me and Shauna today. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you on the next episode for more advice, love, and support. Till next time, this was the Grace and Love Podcast. I'm your host, Grace. This is Shauna, signing off. Bye.